Just start talking about it.
When he comes on stage, break him out. No, I'm kidding, go nuts.
Should we hum? Where he be? Where he be?
He's right there.
Where? Whoop, 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 there he is. I can't see him. I can't see him. Not in my thingy here, at least. Get closer.
Nope.
Come on. Come on. Hand over your food and your coffee.
Alright, Armageddon. He is a beloved son. He is a regular here at Armageddon. He's known by many, many names, such as Crixus, Slade Wilson, Deathstroke, Azog the Defiler, and very soon you will know him as Eleanor from the Shadow series, known by Hooking by Manu Bennett!
I was trying to get his attention because I needed to go to the bathroom. But anyway, 55 minutes of standing up here, and I know it'll be somewhere in the back of my mind. Hey guys, thank you for coming along. Firstly, probably the biggest honor you can have as an actor is to actually have, an audience that appreciates you. And I've kind of had a bit of a blessed journey the last few years, and had some really wonderful roles to perform, and it's always just quite surprising to myself. I'm just a kid that grew up in a small town, and young Maori boy, and to actually think that I got the opportunity to work with the likes of Peter Jackson and Warner Brothers and all these wonderful production houses is it's surprising to me still. I have to pinch myself. I sit in the movies with my kids watching The Hobbit, and I'm like, really? Can I do that? It's quite interesting how things turn out. But at the end of the day, it's been a wonderful journey, And look at these guys at the back here. You guys look really spooky. The two white masks. What are you guys? I want you to both come up here. Come up here. I'm going to have these guys sitting up here on stage for at least 10 minutes. These are freaky. I don't know what it is. It's like I saw that movie Halloween. Just that white mask stuff is kind of freaky. Oh, buddy. I don't want you to say anything. It's just kind of weird. Come on, sit on either side. Come on, sit on either side. Here we go.
And that was the last we ever saw of him.
It's just quite an unusual look, isn't it? This is my friend. And my other friend. This is the thing, you see, like you kind of end up, you start life, as a performer, I guess, and you're kind of like these blank, you just sort of get this blank face, and nobody knows who you are. And then you have to sort of put on these costumes that people give you, like Crixus, like Slade Wilson, Deathstroke, Azog, and soon it'll be Alanon and Shimano. And then all of a sudden you have to sort of transform from being kind of like a voiceless, faceless little human being from Newcastle or Rotorua or, you have to go through that little box. Your energy, your signal has to go through that little box, at home, called a television screen or the big screen in the cinema, and sort of influence people. And it's interesting once you put on a costume, because it really sort of does start that journey. Like I remember the first time I dressed up, as Crixus. Not that I was wearing much.
Champion of popular!
Oh, thank you, yeah. It was really interesting to just sort of step up to Andy Whitfield. Let's thank that guy with a little round of applause. Andy Whitfield did such an amazing job. He left such an indelible image, in that one season that we all worked together on. It was really such an incredible reality when we were actually filming. We'd sort of gone on with filming with Liam McIntyre playing in the role of Spartacus at that stage, and we were on set. The thing about Spartacus is that you kind of did you guys watch Spartacus? Did you watch it? It's great to play with these guys. But we literally, we knew we were doing good stuff out at Sylvia Park. That's where we filmed. We actually filmed the studios for Spartacus. You took the exit at Mount Wellington at the Sylvia Park, and you drove in past the Tip Top ice cream factory or something. That's where Capual was. That's where the Romans had us imprisoned. It was kind of funny, And then we had this other studio. It was funny. We had this other studio. The studio spaces were really quite big. They're kind of like this space here, but probably even higher, and probably bigger than this room, probably twice as big as this room. And we had either these Roman villas or these gladiator training grounds or these arenas or How many people here watch Spartacus? Because I don't want to go on about it too much. Thank you. So some people will understand what I'm talking about. He's got to find his camera. So imagine if he took his mask off and it was like Stephen Amell. Then you'd all go crazy, wouldn't you? Here we go. And anyway, so the sets were really interesting for Spartacus. The first season, actually, the first season of Spartacus was a real tester for us all because we started filming, I believe, in the middle of winter, like smack in the middle of winter. And of course, we had to arrive and our costume consisted of a loincloth, right? And it was freezing. I mean, it was really, really cold. And then, to make things even more interesting, is that we went from scenes in our loincloth to scenes without loincloth. And it was so cold. These cameras were quite honest. So all the boys used to stand in the bathhouse, kind of like, just so they could sort of, not be too embarrassed on the camera. But I mean, jokes aside, it was really such an intense show. One of the things about Spartacus, and I think it was a real homage to all of us who were involved, the stunt guys, the actors, and everything, is that we all did our own stunts on that show. And that was great. I mean, I really loved the ability to be able to do everything that Crixus needed to do physically, because I wanted to really own the character. I felt like I owned the character, and I just wanted to make sure that everything I did physically was just as intense as the way that I was acting the character. I found that the reason why that is because the ACC, the ACC here, with ACC basically producers aren't really responsible. If you get injured, then it goes under ACC and you go to a hospital and the government covers it, right? So the producers are like, oh yeah, you guys can just kill each other, go for it. But then when I got across to Canada, you see, in America, they've got a whole different scenario. You can sue people. You slip over on a coffee, you can sue people. So basically, a lot of the stuff that I ended up doing on Arrow and whatnot, I do a little bit of it, but then they call in all the stunt guys. So I've actually found that my physical presence on doing shows kind of like, ended up being minimized going over and doing it in the States and Canada, which I don't love. I don't love it at all, because I really think that, when you're creating these physical characters, it's great to do the whole story, But it was just a bit different over there. Do you guys get that? Yeah. They stop you guys from doing your fight scenes? I don't even know who these guys are.
It's all right, we don't either.
You know, these guys have got a whole really interesting little repertoire that they got going on. We don't know anything about it. It's funny.
I don't know.
But anyway, look, you know, immediately, I was like, oh, you know, and I, out of just survival instincts, I grabbed him by the nuts.
It's all like
These guys should get paid for this. Such a great job. That's illegal. But anyway, so I grabbed him and I was like, wow. And he told me that he actually took a day for it to come back to film. But like all these guys had come, like I got there and they were like, oh, Crixus, yeah, Crixus. This guy just wanted to knock me down a few pegs in front of everybody because he was the real Crixus. So anyway, that didn't sound like fear. Must be fun. So yeah, basically, this almost choked me out. Another thing is that when I was there, I had really, really bad jet lag, and so this guy had given me this 5-hour energy drink.
Oh no.
To sort of stay awake while I was there doing these rounds with the military. And they told me that basically they all keep 5-hour energy, those little energy drinks, caffeine drinks. They keep them in their kit because it's you don't want to be in a gun battle and be getting tired and they're starting to take advantage of you. You've got to stay in there and keep the battle going. So this is actually a real survival part of the survival kit. So these 5-hour energy drinks. For me, it was just to stay awake and go and see the Marines. Right? But as it turned out, that guy called Knight took me to the airport. At the last second, I was in Kuwait and I thought, I'm going to fly back to New Zealand. I had to come back from the Hobbit premiere, and I thought I'd fly back through Asia and come back to New Zealand that way. At the very last minute, I changed my mind. I thought, no, I'm going to fly through Los Angeles. I've only got 2 days, but I'll go there, I'll see my manager, say hello, I've got to jump on a plane and go back to New Zealand from that way. It's the longer way around, but I just, for some reason, changed my mind. Knight and a few of the other Special Forces guys drove me to the airport, and they walked me all the way into the security gates, and Knight said, this Knight guy, who put me the joke on, he said, just as I was about to go through, he said, here, something to remember us by. And he gave me this 5-hour energy drink. And I didn't really know how significant that little thing would be. I took it and I said, oh, thanks, man. It's fun. Anyway, I got on a plane, flew over to LA. I was there for 2 days only. On the second day, I was meant to be flying out. I was flying out. And my manager rang me and said, Manu, where are you? Have you gone to the airport yet? I said, no, I'm just packing my bags now. She says, you got to go for an audition for this show called Arrow. I was on my way to the airport. And it was funny because I'd seen the billboards up. Arrow was about to, I think it was either about to start or maybe 1 or 2 episodes had aired already. And there were billboards all over LA. And the reason why it stood out to me was because I'd met Stephen Amell before. Stephen was one of the 3 actors that were flown over to New Zealand when they were recasting Spartacus.
Oh.
Stephen Amell flew here to New Zealand, and I read with him, I read with Liam McIntyre, who ended up getting the role, and this other brown-haired guy from New York. So I'd met, that Spartacus wasn't for Stephen Amell, but I'd met him and I'd read this. Remember the scene that I did with Andy Whitfield, where he came and tried to recruit me in the last episode of the first season? And then we both stood up and we went, and tomorrow one of us will die in the arena. I told him that I couldn't join the rebellion, so I had to go and save Navia. It was a really beautiful scene. Well, I read that scene with Stephen Amell in a screen test, so I met the guy. And so it was just weird because I'd been driving around the first day I was there, I'd seen the Arrow billboards, and I'd God, like, that's that guy, eh? Yeah. And then, the next morning it was like, Manu, you've got to go read for this role for that. And I had, after Kuwait, after New Zealand to Kuwait, the jet lag, and then Kuwait to LA, the jet lag had doubled, and I was really feeling out of it, really out of it. And when I pulled up outside this casting agency, they, I was like, oh God, I just don't have the energy for this audition. I'm like, this is probably the worst I've felt walking into a casting agency. I don't know how I'm going to find the energy for this. And I went, oh, that 5-hour energy drink. So I ran around the back of my car, I rummaged through the back and I found this 5-hour energy shot. And I just dumped it. I threw this thing down, and I swear to you, when I went in for my audition for Arrow, I was on Mirakuru. Without a doubt, I used Mirakuru. Given to me by Knight, this Special Forces guy from Kuwait. And then what made it twice as funny was I walk into this this audition, I'll get weird for everything.
Finally.
So I walk in and it's like, you guys are great. I walk in and there's this room full of, it was probably the most testosterone-filled room I'd ever been in. Because there's all these, probably every actor who looked like anybody could play a tough guy in a series or whatever, what movie, was in this room. And they were all walking around reading this particular audition script. I hadn't even seen it yet. So I went and picked it up and I'm looking at it and it goes like, Slade Wilson, it says Oliver Queen walks into the fuselage of the downed plane on the island of Lian. As he walks through the fuselage, a shadow drops from behind him and a figure jumps up, grabbing him in a chokehold. I've got like a chokehold. And I saw it, and then he says these words, he goes, "You got 10 seconds to tell me something I believe, kid, or I'm gonna cut out your throat box." I'm going like, this is cool. This 5-hour energy drink is really starting to get into me. And then the chokehold, I was just going like, that chokehold, I've just been with the Special Forces guy, and he showed me the chokehold. I know this scene, I can do it. And I sat down and I listened to some of the guys doing the audition in the room. And I mean, there was some really bad auditions going on in that room. It was like, "You got 10 seconds to tell me something I believe, kid, or I'm gonna cut out your throat box." I heard that come through the door in my face. And I was like, yeah, gonna get it. And then, you hear guys with really effective acting voices go, "You got 10 seconds to tell me something I believe, kid, or I'm gonna cut out your throat box." He's not gonna get it. And I sat there and I thought about Knight, and the way Knight was so quiet. He was just deadly quiet, this guy. And then it was my turn. They opened up the door and they said, "Oh, come in, Mr. Bennett." I said, "Okay." God, I mean, that 5-hour energy drink, it was like I was in Mexico. I'm like, 6 of base and a couple of things. I was like, yeah. So I went in, and do you want to be you can be the casting director over here, right? The casting director was over here with the reader. The reader was over there with the casting director. So they're standing there behind this camera, looking at me like this. And I'm telling you, this is what it's like in Hollywood. They look like this. And you're meant to bare your soul. But this thing was just going through my system. And I said, hey, listen, can I have the reader come in front of the camera? Because I'd like to hold him in that chokehold. And you were the chokehold. And the director nodded and said, yes, you can do that, yes. Good, thank you. Okay, so he said, like, are you ready now? Yes, I'm ready now. So they started filming it, exactly. And I grabbed this guy by the throat, and this 5-hour energy drink was just surging through my muscles. And I went, listen, kid, you've got 10 seconds to tell me something but I believe, or I am gonna cut out your throat box. And suddenly I felt this person go limp. And I didn't know what was going on. And I said to the casting director, I said, is this part of the audition? Yeah. And he said, no, you've choked him out. And I was like, kid, are you okay? Kid. And he started coming to, because with that particular chokehold, it just sort of blocks a bit of blood and oxygen, and he'd just pass out. And so he started coming to. I was like, you okay, kid? Oh yeah. I said, okay, get up. And then the director said to him, go to the bathroom and wash your face with some water. And so he went off. You get to come back in a minute after you wash your face. And this is what the casting director kind of looked like to me. And in my head, I'm going like, I'm never going to get an audition in LA ever again. I've just screwed my career up. And I said, listen, I'm sorry, dude, I was just in Kuwait with Special Forces guys, and this guy showed me that chokehold, and you know what, obviously it works.
Obviously.
And I swear to you, and David Rappaport might give me a little email and say, stop talking about me like this, but he actually said to me, it was great. It was perfect. He suddenly just turned around and said, don't worry about it, you were so committed. It was perfect. And he said, here, let me show you the camera. So we walked back over. He says, yeah, okay. We both went over the camera, and we started watching the replay. And we're looking at it, and you see this young kid go,
Right.
you see, it was perfect. And I'm going like, yes. It was like, oh, cool. And then you know, he basically told me, he said, listen, it was so intense. I think you've got a good chance at this role. Thank you. Hey. And then the kid came back up from the toilet. He washed his face. And I was like, I'm sorry, brother. And he was like, no, it was great. It was so intense. Yeah. I was like, oh, cool. So I'm really lucky because there was kind of like this big casting agent in LA and a young guy who got caught by me in a chokehold. And somehow between all of that craziness, I flew back. An hour later, I was on a plane from LA back to the Hobbit premiere. And then I woke up the morning after the Hobbit premiere in Wellington, and I got a phone call from my manager, and she said, Manu, you're not going to believe it. They've given you the role. So I rang her up and I said, I just choked the guy out. Yeah. And literally from Wellington, I was flown out 2 days later to Vancouver. And I spent a year and a bit in Vancouver. In my reality, my wife. We're not quite yet married, but we're getting there. But it's that mate of mine from Greenhithe whose father was in his living room for a couple of years. Hey, buddy. Guys? I've got about maybe 400 people who might join me. Okay, guys, you don't have to bring anything.
Yeah.
He's going to buy the whole of Coles. Yeah, man, I'm in the middle of the seminar. It's so funny. Hey, you just called, bro, and you're on loudspeaker. Everyone's listening.
400 people. Okay, this is my mate Matt. Everyone say hi, Matt. Hi, Matt. Whoa, you hear that, brother? Okay, brother. Thank you, mate. I'll see you at the Barbie this afternoon, mate. Hey.
See you,
Bye.
mate.
Bye, Matt. Bye, Matt.
You just got one good bike. That's a really good classic colour. That's funny. Yeah. So anyway.
So anyway.
On a serious note, so I flew over to Vancouver. At that time, my partner got diagnosed with breast cancer, and I was given a full-time role in that show. So it meant I had to live in Vancouver. There was no way that my partner could join me over there. Corinne could come across because she had to go and start doing chemo and all this sort of stuff. So it was hell. I mean, it was a really... How many people here have had relatives involved with cancer or breast cancer? Yeah, it's staggering. It's staggering. It's serious stuff, you know. I mean, here I am dressed up as Slade Wilson, Deathstroke over in Canada playing this role, but in reality, all I can think about is my 3 little girls and the fact that mum's now fighting for her life. So it was quite tough. It was not just quite tough, it was very tough. Trying to fulfill my obligations because I'm the breadwinner. And so, I had to do all this work. I couldn't just not do this job. And Corinne understood, but at the same time, I'd be Skyping her while she's sitting there with doing chemo. And it was just extraordinarily a tough battle for our family. And once I came to the end of Arrow, as soon as I got back on the plane, I proposed to Corinne. I said, let's just try to find a way through all of this, difficulty of me working as a Hollywood or an American or whatever, but, some actor that's got to travel everywhere and try to find some change so that I can be home, so I can be home around you. But, it's not easy when you work as an actor and you're trying to elevate where you are with your job. Living in New Zealand, because I've done Shortland Street, they don't want me back on that anymore. I've done, I did work with Julie Christie on Going Straight. Whoever saw Going Straight? It's funny, yeah. I was this host on this kind of, it was in New Zealand. It was like this show where you had to sort of walk in a straight line. It didn't matter what was in front of you as an obstacle. And it was kind of like a Fear Factor thing. But anyway, so you sort of get to a point where you just sort of can't go any further, and you need to, you just need to keep on competing. But that competition means going to LA and all this stuff that takes you away from home. So that was a really tough moment to try to decide what to do with the future. And you know, we decided that, you know, between us that I'd keep on pursuing, you know, the next role, the next step. So we agreed that I'd go over to LA and do pilot season. And so this January, or you know, late last year actually, December, January, I moved to LA to stay in an apartment with a mate of mine from Australia, a photographer guy, and I decided I'd hit the casting agencies and see if I could get a movie or something. You know?